Sock knitting blasphemy cemented down to my skull. I will feel like the happiest grape. Eye blinding to look at. The sock from hell. So they looked more fleshy. Why is it only the head? I unfortunately was basically like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Wool-Minded Knitting Podcast. This is my first episode back since my really long hiatus, so thank you so much if you're tuning into this. I did post a fall knitting plans video and a vlog as well, but I know a lot of people just check out the knitting podcast episodes. So this is my first episode back, and it's been, I think, like 7 months now. So to anyone watching this video, thank you so much for sticking around, or if you're a new viewer, then hello. But today is podcast episode number 4, I believe, I think. And we have quite a bit to talk about this video, so I'm not going to ramble on too long, and I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So first I'm going to go ahead and talk about what I'm wearing. So I'm wearing a Sophie scarf by Petite Knit, and mine is knit in a vintage red Angora yarn, and I absolutely love this. It is so warm and cuddly and toasty. I do just want to preface here, because this is the second Angora Sophie scarf that I'm knitting, and in an episode prior where I talked about one, someone left a comment talking about the ethics around Angora, and I just wanted to quickly go over that here. So from my research, it is my understanding that this Angora, because it's vintage and a lot of Angora made, is not ethically harvested from rabbits. And I have come to the decision, because I have a lot of vintage Angora in my yarn stash, and I also have some Angora from a yarn store when I was visiting Scotland that's called Orkney Angora, and they claim to be ethically harvested, but if you go to their website, it actually shows for Orkney Angora that brand had been rebought, and the prior owner is the one who visited the farm in which had the rabbits where they were getting the Angora for, and that was 14 years ago. And I don't think that you can reasonably say, like, within a 14-year time period, that standard that you would have seen then still applies. So I do have that Angora, and I have this vintage Angora. And the vintage Angora, I have less of a qualm with the fact that I purchased, just because those companies don't exist anymore. I think most of the Angora I have is like, I think some of it would have even been produced in the 50s, and a lot of it produced in like the 80s to 90s. And those companies are like long gone, and I'm buying it secondhand. So I'm not giving any money back to that industry, but I do just want to, probably every time I show Angora in a video, I'm going to give like a little spiel about the ethics around it, just because I think that's important to do. And I don't want it to seem like it's something I'm just totally brushing off and disregarding. So I will say that I personally don't have an issue with using the vintage Angora. I am not sure as to whether or not I will choose to purchase more now at this point. 1, I have a lot of it, and 2, I have to like kind of decide what I want to do, if I want to keep showing it in videos, because the problem is I like to knit with it, and I do plan to knit with it. So I really need to decide if I want to show my Angora projects in videos. For right now, I'm choosing to continue to show them, but that may change in the future. But I just want to say I'm comfortable with, you know, what I did with buying from Orkney Angora, which, like I said, I don't know whether or not it's ethically farmed or not. I'm going to choose to not buy from that company anymore. And, you know, the damage is done. I already spent money on that. They would have already gotten, you know, the proceeds from my purchase for that. But I'm probably going to not purchase from them anymore. And then for now, I'm okay with using the vintage Angora that I have, because like I said, those companies don't exist anymore, and I'm buying them secondhand. So I'm not fueling the industry with my purchase. And I am putting like this disclaimer here when I'm using them, so you can make, you know, the choice that is correct for you. And if you have any comments about that, or want to share any further information in the comments down below, please do so others can be aware of the Angora industry, and just so people can make, you know, informed decisions. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about my finished objects. So I'm going to quickly just run through the accessories that I have first, and then I'll move on to my finished sweater. So I just have a pair of vanilla socks here that I knit, and this is in Woolberry Fiber Co. Pumpkin Spice Latte. And I just want to say, I totally disagree with the color naming of this. I have personally never had a pumpkin spice latte that is this yellow. If you've had a pumpkin spice latte that is this yellow, I would love to hear. I do love this color though. It reminds me more of like dried corn though, if I'm being honest, than a pumpkin spice latte. And this is just a standard vanilla sock. I did 2x2 rib at the top and a slip stitch heel, which is my favorite heel. And I believe I did 64 stitches for this sock, but I am gonna say I did something a bit blasphemous when it comes to sock knitting. What I did is definitely sock knitting blasphemy. So I had come to the conclusion that the hand knit socks that I have knit prior, I do love and I wear them all the time, but I prefer to wear them in my boots because I like when I'm out and about, I like my socks to feel tight, but when I'm home, I really don't like tight feeling socks and I would love to have wool socks to wear around the house. So I do normally knit a 64 stitch sock on either size 0 or 1 needles, and they normally those normally result in me having like a snug sock that I like to wear in boots. But for this, I actually, instead of going up a needle size, I just tried to knit looser, which is like a big no-no. If you're trying to change the gauge of a project, you should really change the needle size. So do not do what I did. I am fortunate that this worked out for this, just because I knit this so quickly that there really wasn't an opportunity for me to forget how loosely I was knitting. Like I still had that memory in my hands, but definitely don't do that because this could have turned out terribly and I'm honestly not gonna do that again. Probably if I wanna knit looser socks now, I'm gonna buy an additional sock needle because I acknowledge that this was probably a super risky decision to make, but these are my vanilla socks here. So for my next finished accessory, this is actually still a little wet, so I'm not gonna hold it for too long because I don't want it to get weird and stretched out, but this is just a classic ripped hat by Pearl Soho. And I am knitting this in Moondrake Cormo Support. I believe this is the color Plum, but I'm not 100% sure. I also don't think she makes this color anymore. And then the mohair that I held with this is a gepard garn mohair, and I forgot to note what the color name was, so I'll put it up on the screen. But so to briefly touch on why I was gone, and if you're interested to see why I was gone, in my vlog episode there's a section in there that talks about it, but I had some like health issues and personal matters happening. So when I was taking this break from the knitting podcast, I didn't really knit that much. And when I did knit, like I needed something really cheerful. So this is one of the things that I cast on during that time. And as you can see, this is an extremely bright color. And I'm not gonna lie, this is not a color that's normally in my repertoire, but I love it. And it's actually, I plan to wear it with a purple sweater that I'm knitting. And I just think I will feel like an amazing and happy and cheerful grape wearing this hat and wearing my purple sweater. So this definitely was a super cheerful knit and I'm really happy that I knit it. I will say it's a bit looser than I typically like to wear hats, but the issue that I have with how I typically like to wear hats is that I like to wear hats so snug that they mess up my hair like really bad. My hair becomes like cemented down to my skull. So it's probably better that I'm knitting. And you know, my husband would say I like to wear hats like too tight, like not anywhere near the normal person should be wearing a beanie. And I know this because he likes to wear my hats and my head is bigger than his and he says they fit comfortably. So I think I just like a tight beanie. But I'm hoping that this loose of a beanie will mean it's not even loose. This normal fitting beanie will allow me to not have super messed up hair when I take the beanie off. But the Pearl Soho Classic Ribbed Hat is also a hat pattern that I just love. This is the third one that I've knit. The first two that I knit were just in a DK Superwash yarn, and this is in a Sport Plus mohair, but I just find the fit of this hat to be amazing. And I think it looks really clean and store-bought for something that's so incredibly easy to knit. Like the decreases on this are so enjoyable. This is just a pattern that I love to knit. So highly recommend if you haven't knit this yet. So yeah, this is just my classic ribbed beanie that I knit. Okay, now on to my finished sweater for this podcast, which is unfortunately kind of a fail. So I'm gonna film the B-roll for this sweater after I film this podcast because I actually ordered some 1mm elastic for the neckband, which will kind of determine the decision that I make on this. So if you would have been watching my last podcast episodes, you would have seen this Eun Sweater Light. This is by Anne Fiscum Sunday, and this is knit in Woolberry Fingering and Woolberry Surrey in the color Sugar Cookies. And it's this really beautiful, like peachy pink color, and it's really nice. I unfortunately was basically like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde when I was knitting this because I knit it in my hiatus, and I started knitting it when I was in like a more happier mindset, and I just had like the absolute roller coaster of emotions while I was knitting this sweater. So there is no part of this sweater where the gauge is the same. So the gauge is different and they're all different from each other too. So the gauge is different on both sleeves. They have different gauges from each other. The top of the body is knit at a different gauge, and so is like where the part of the body where you split for the sleeves. So this sweater has 4 different gauges going on in it, and it is kind of a disaster. So in the beginning of the sweater, I actually checked, I was on gauge. So the beginning of the sweater, it was all good. And then it was just entirely downhill from there. And actually the sleeves are so different that there's like almost an inch difference in the width between the sleeves, which unfortunately is noticeable and even though I was on gauge on the beginning portion of the sweater, like the beginning of the yoke, this neckband is so wide. Like it sits from here to here pretty much. So when you see Anne's sample version, hers sits pretty like a classic crew neck. And I did buy some 1mm elastic that I'm gonna try to put in the neckband and see if that fixes the neckband issue. So if the neckband issue can't be fixed, then I'm probably just going to entirely frog the sweater and call it a loss because the neckband portion, that would just like really bother me. So I'm gonna call it a loss if the elastic doesn't fix the neckband. But if the elastic does fix the neckband, then my plan is probably going to be that although it bothers me that the body of the sweater is bigger than the yoke, I actually was so off gauge that it's like 2 inches wider than it's supposed to be. I don't think the body gauge is so big of an issue, but definitely the sleeves bother me because not only can I visually tell that one is bigger, but I can also like sensory wise, because they're wider sleeves, I can feel that one of them has more space. Like my arm is floating around in it more, and sensory wise, that just drives me absolutely bonkers. Also, these sleeves are way too long, which is another issue. But so if the elastic fixes the neckband issue, then I'm going to keep the sweater and I'm going to re-knit both of the sleeves. So they're too big for me personally. So I would make both of them smaller and I would re-knit them on the same needle size in like quick succession. So there would be no opportunity for my gauge to change drastically. So another contingency for this sweater being kept, even if the elastic fixes the neckband, is that I only want to keep this sweater so my husband and I are on an infertility journey, and if you would have watched any of my prior videos, there is like fluff floating everywhere. But if you would have watched any of my prior videos, then you would have seen that my husband and I are on an infertility journey. And if I get pregnant in the time that this can be worn, like that I will be pregnant during the cold season here, then I will keep this sweater because I think the largeness of it would accompany a baby bump really well. But if that doesn't happen, like if by December we aren't pregnant, which, you know, is totally a possibility, then I am still like, even if the elastic fixes the neckband, I'm just gonna frog this because I don't see myself wearing it otherwise. Like I would totally be okay with living with the fact that this would become a maternity sweater and it would have, you know, that positive memory associated with it, and I would get wear out of it as I grow. But for a standard sweater for my body now, I just don't really have a desire to keep it, and in which case I will just chalk this up to a loss and frog it. Although I am scared to frog this because it is Surrey and it's a lot of yarn, and I'm worried about making the Surrey bald, but I will still frog it if that is the case. And I'm not gonna lie, I was sad when I blocked the sweater and I realized that blocking was not going to fix any of the sins that I had with this sweater. And I was feeling a bit down about that I had a sweater fail. And I was especially, I'm caught in the ends because I didn't weave in the ends on this because I don't know what I'm gonna do. But I was a bit down when I finished that sweater, and I was just thinking, ugh. And I was starting to feel like, man, I just feel like I never knit anything that I like. I feel like everything is going wrong. I was being really hard on myself. And I think part of the reason that I was being hard on myself is because really the only 2 sweater fails that I have been documented on this podcast, which is super unfortunate because I actually, the other day after I blocked that, I was feeling so sad. I went and tried on every sweater that I had knit in the past, and I have knit a lot of really beautiful sweaters that I love and I love to wear, and that made me feel better. It made me realize that I was just, getting in my head a little bit, and that wasn't true. Like I've knit tons of nice things, but I think what made that sweater But I think where the thought around that sweater really bothering me came from is because, like I said, both my sweater fails have actually been documented on this podcast, and I don't have that many knitting podcast episodes. So it's really unfortunate that my 2 fails are in my knitting podcast history. And the sweater fail that really bothers me is this chestnut sweater by Petite Knit. I am just incredibly off gauge in this sweater. I'm gonna look up the gauge that the sweater is supposed to be. I am incredibly off gauge in this chestnut sweater. Like, it is supposed to be, I think, like 20 stitches by 28 rows. And I think I have like 19 stitches by I think it's like 32 or 33 rows. So this is a really, really, really dense fabric. Like, incredibly dense. Like, this feels like a very sturdy textile. And because it is so dense, I used way more yarn than this was supposed to have. So the sleeves are too short, the body is too short, it's too small. It just has like a ton of issues. And honestly, ever since I knit this sweater, every time I think about it, I feel a little bit sad. So I am going to frog this. And I'm just bringing this up in this video to say, it's okay to frog sweaters. Like, this yarn is absolutely beautiful too. This is Olan Mira, which is a discontinued yarn, so you can't even get it anymore. And it's held with the mohair from Knitting for Olive. So it's a really beautiful and luxurious combination. And I think you can see too, oh, it's on this side. This is the front. And you can see too that I had issues with the skeins being different color, and you can see the lines here. So I think I'm just going to bite the bullet and I'm going to frog this and eventually reuse the yarn. And yeah, I think from now on when I knit Petite Knit sweaters, I really need to go up a needle size, because every single thing I've knit from her, like garment wise, has come off gauge. Like, my gauge is too tight. So I think from now on, like when I'm swatching, I'm just going to immediately starting off going up 1 needle size. But yeah, this is just a fail that has been weighing on me, and I just wanted to put this out there in case anyone else has a fail that's weighing on them too. It's okay, just frog it. We will do a fall frogging. So this is going to be a fall frogging session for me. And I think I will just, once this is done, I think I'll feel relieved that this has been frogged. You can actually see I pulled out an end that came out of the armpit, but yeah, so this is going to be the fate of this sweater. It's going to be frogged, and I'm going to reuse the yarn again for something else eventually. And hopefully for this one too, the mohair doesn't end up completely bald. I'm going to try the freezer method and see if that works out. And if not, I may just trash the mohair if it ends up too bald. But yeah, so just a fail. I just wanted to share because sometimes that's what knitting is. Not everything turns out perfectly, unfortunately, but you know, it's okay. Okay, I feel like I've already been talking for a literal eternity. Like, I feel like so much time has passed already. I'm gonna get into my whips now. So my first whip is a sweater whip, and I just have it in this Fat Squirrel project bag. One of my favorite project bag makers. Definitely, if you're looking for sweater bags, highly recommend her. This is her large wedge size, and this perfectly fits like a chunky sweater for me. And she also has like a sweater and Aran as you go up in sizes. Phenomenal project bags. And also she has a knitting podcast, and she just seems like such a lovely lady. So check out her podcast if you hadn't seen it before. Highly recommend. But what I have in here is actually, I have like a million things in here that are falling out. My project bags are always like an omega disaster, and I normally stick like just any knitting bits I'm not using in whatever project bag is closest to me, which makes them a huge disaster. But what I am knitting is actually something that I could have finished before this podcast, but it wouldn't have been blocked in time. And I don't feel comfortable holding up a sweater wet. So I actually took a pause on working from this. So probably the next time I film, you'll see this as a finished object. But this is the White Mountain by Midori Hirose. And it is just a very classic raglan sweater. And what's so lovely about it is how she does the raglan increases. It leaves this really nice like pearl channel going down it. And this time I'm knitting the crew neck version. I don't have the crew neck sewed down yet, so it looks like a funnel neck for now, but this will be the fold over crew neck version. So she has 4 neck options for this pattern. She has a mock neck, which is one that I'd done before. She has a classic crew neck, a fold over crew neck, and then a like stockinette funnel neck. And the first time I knit the funnel neck, and I actually knit it in the same yarn combination that she has in the sample, which is Ritual Dyes Elder and Ritual Dyes Fae, which is their mohair. And I think the color is Smoke. It's like a really dark, warm toned gray, and it's super beautiful. That is actually probably my most worn sweater and one of my favorite yarn combinations I have ever worked with. So this will be the second time that I'm knitting this pattern. And I am knitting this one in Brooklyn Tweed Imbue in the worsted weight version, which so sad. Rest in peace, Brooklyn Tweed. I absolutely loved that yarn company. It's such a tragedy that they're not making yarn anymore, but I'm glad that I have some of it in my stash. And I'm glad that I'm also getting some of it out of my stash so I can wear it. So this is Brooklyn Tweed Imbue, and this is the color Orchid, and it is so beautiful. With my purple, this is the purple hat. This is the sweater that I wanted to wear the purple hat with because they're both like warm toned purple colors. And come on, I just feel like I will feel like the happiest grape wearing this. I don't know why. So there's sometimes like when I wear normal clothes, I don't generally like normal clothes. I don't know what that means. When I wear like day to day, not workout clothes, I wear pretty like standard color palettes, but when I wear like workout wear or active wear, I love weird color combos. I don't know why. It's just one of my favorite things is I have a purple sweatshirt that I wear with like bright green leggings, and it's almost like eye blinding to look at, but I just absolutely love it. And I just feel like a happy grape. I don't know how else to put it. They're just such a cheerful combination to me. And you know what? I don't even really, this is gonna sound weird because I'm talking about a sweatshirt that I love that's purple, and I have knit 2 purple things, and I actually have another purple thing to show. But purple is not like normally in my color repertoire. I like purple. I never wear purple except for that sweatshirt, and now hopefully these 2 things. But yeah, I don't know what it is with me and finding purple to be really cheerful right now. So lots of purple going on. But like I said, this is my second White Mountain sweater and I love this pattern, absolutely love. I'm actually knitting this off gauge. So the first one I knit, I was on gauge. Actually, me and Midori Hirose, I think, have like the same knitting gauge because whenever I swatch something from her and the two sweaters that I've knit, they're like bang on gauge. So I think we just have the same knitting tension. But so this one is knit in an extra large. My first sweater is knit in the medium 2 size. And I actually went down a needle size here. So this is knit in a size 9, I think. Okay, yes, I knit the body in a size 9. So that's one needle size down. And I didn't gauge swatch for going, I have like fuzz everywhere. It's sticking to my face, but I didn't gauge swatch for this. And it just so happens that I have the perfect gauge to knit the extra large to get the M2 measurements. Like it is literally, I'm going to have the same measurements on this as my original. So lucky, I am just very lucky with that this happened to work out that way. And yeah, I love the fabric. I feel like this is a really nice density for the imbue, and I am just so excited to wear this. But for whatever reason, the raglan on the sweater just fits me perfectly. Like it is so flattering. I have really broad shoulders, and sometimes I feel like raglans sit really weird. I just kind of have like really drastic measurements going in my upper half. So I have really broad shoulders and a large bust in comparison to my upper bust. I don't know what my shoulder measurement is, but I know from wearing clothes that it's wider than it should be because I often have an issue with shoulder seams and armpit areas of clothing. So my shoulders are really wide and I have large arms, which obviously like widens that even more. But my bust, I think right now is a 46 inch and my upper bust is 41. So I have a really drastic difference in that area. And sometimes I feel like raglans just they're like too wide or too narrow, and they just can kind of be unflattering. And I just find for me personally, the White Mountains is just perfect. Like this is my perfect raglan sweater. And this is my second one, and it will definitely not be my last. I just absolutely cannot get enough of this sweater, and I'm excited to have another one. I will say, compared to the pattern, my sleeves, I knit significantly longer. I think my sleeve is like 4 inches longer than the pattern calls for because I wanted this to be really long and cozy. And I partially knit the sleeves a little longer too because I want to block out the sleeves a tiny bit widthwise, and I was worried about that eating up some of the length. And I will say too, as a tip, if you're knitting, so the Brooklyn Tweed Imbue is like really round, and it's the kind of yarn that I imagine would hold cables really well. And when you knit with this kind of yarn, which I would say Elder is similar as well, that it really tends to hold shape. So like in the crease of your elbow as you're bending, you know, your clothes create folds here. And with Elder, and I think with this yarn as well, it seems like one that's really going to hold the shape of the folds, which yarns like that tend to really eat up some length in the arm. So that's definitely something to keep in mind as you're knitting. If you're knitting with a similar yarn, that you may want to add like an inch to the sleeve to account for those creases that are going to stay there as you're wearing them. So that's something that I did with this sweater. And yeah, next podcast, you should probably see this finished, and maybe I'll model it with my purple hat so you can see my very happy purple outfit that I plan to wear with this. I also realized I just lied. I have 2 more purple things to show. So this podcast will have 4 purple things for someone that claims that they don't love purple. So my next whip is a sock. Well, the top half of a sock that I have taken off the needles. This is the Forest Fruit Sock by Sashiko Bergen, and I love this sock pattern. This is the 3rd time that I have knit this colorwork cuff. So the first time I tried doing it magic loop, which I had never, actually I had once before done magic loop for color work on a hat, and that was also a fail. That's something that I have worn quite a few times, but definitely me doing color work on magic loop is not the neatest. And I tried to do magic loop for this sock and it was a fail, so I unraveled it. And then I tried magic loop again since I had had some practice doing magic loop. And then it was neater, but it was too small. So this time I did, what is it called? My brain can't remember. When you have like the 5 needles that aren't attached to anything, DPNs. I knit it on DPNs in the size recommended in the pattern, which I think is the 3mm, and it is just so big, like way too big. Like so big that I don't even think I would want to wear it as a house sock because I think it would be falling down all the time. So this is basically like the sock from hell for me. Like this sock has been an absolute nightmare. Like the sock has been an absolute terror to knit. I just mentally, I cannot knit this sock again for now. I want to have these socks, and I think the next time I try to knit them, I'm going to do it on a small circular. I'm going to buy small circulars for it, but I just cannot knit it again in this yarn combo because I'm just honestly sick of seeing it. Like knitting this 3 times is just too much for me, which is unfortunate because I love the yarn combination for this sock. So maybe I will revisit it in these colors, but most likely when I try to knit this pattern again, I am going to knit it in different colors just because I feel like I have seen this so much. And the first time I knit it, I actually entirely finished the sock before I realized that it didn't fit. So some of my yarn that I used for like the heel and toes are in these tiny little balls now. But yeah, I just can't see myself knitting with this yarn again. Unfortunately, I don't have the ball band for this anymore, so I don't know what color it is, but it's like this dusty purple with just like a tiny bit of speckles in it. It's like a periwinkle color. I'm pretty sure this is Woolberry as well, actually. And then I think it came in a sock set with this dark purple, but this is going to be another frog for me. This is a fail. So like I said, it's okay. It's okay that I failed. I did try and I learned a lot. And I think if I do colorwork socks that I have to use small circulars, and this just isn't going to work for me. So it was a learning experience, which is good, I guess. But this is a sock fail that I have knit on for so long, and I'm just gonna unravel and try again probably in another yarn combo. But look how pretty these colors are. How sad that this didn't work out for me. The next project that I'm gonna talk about is my second sweater whip, and that is the Rosie Sweater by Lynette or Lena Home Sansa. And it is a very beautiful drop shoulder. I actually, reading ahead in the pattern, I think is it a combination contiguous? It's like a drop shoulder that works into a raglan when you get into the body. And it has really pretty rose color work in 2 rows across the body of the sweater and on the sleeves. And I just think it's a really striking color work pattern. And if you had watched my fall knitting plans, you will have seen that when I was originally talking about knitting it in this yarn combo, which is Onair Oak Air Newtonen unspun yarn in Livslinge, 100% wrong pronunciation for that, for the main body. And it's sort of like a pinky color, like a pinky pearly color. And I held that with Isair Silk Mohair in the color 0, or I think its name is Chalk. And then I also have Olivia and Oliver sock yarn in Mahogany with a I don't remember the Isair Silk Mohair that I held with this. It's like a dark pink rosy color that's held with it. And then this is a Woolberry sock yarn that had no name on the label, so I have no idea what it is, but it's like a juniper color along with a unnamed mystery mohair skein that I had bought during a D-stash. So this is like the mystery swatch since I don't know the information for anything, but this is what it started to look like. And you see, I didn't even finish the swatch because I just wasn't liking it. One, I didn't swatch this really well because I didn't think about the fact that I was swatching in the round, and when I was bringing the yarn to start the color work chart again, it wasn't anchored on this side. So as you can see, like actually there's like a column of stitches here that has completely disappeared into the yarn because it was being sucked back from not having an anchoring point on this side. So the swatch is a little funny, but one, I didn't like the colors together, and two, I don't like the texture combination. Like if you've ever worked with Newton or unspun yarn in general, it has like a really matte fuzzy texture to it. And then the sock yarn, which has nylon in it, and it's superwash. So it kind of gets like a little bit of a shiny, silky look to it. And I just feel like the juxtaposition of the two yarn combinations looks really weird. Like I don't know why I don't like it so much, but I really, really don't like it. Like the Newton plus sock yarn, I don't think I will ever try to knit something in this combination again because I hate it. Like I really, really, really don't like it. I just think it looks so odd next to each other. And I also didn't like that the sock yarn, since it doesn't puff up, I just felt like the color work didn't look very sharp. And overall, I just was not happy with this. And this Newton color is officially my most swatched yarn. I think this is the 4th time I've tried to use this in a project and swatched it. Unfortunately, in my next swatch for this project, you will see that I am still going to use it. But yeah, this yarn has been on quite a journey. So after this swatch being an epic fail, I decided to give it a go with a different yarn combination. And if you watch my fall knitting plans, you'll see that I referenced really liking a version knit by, oh my gosh, fluff everywhere. I really liked a version knit by West Maven here on YouTube. I actually think this time I'll pop a picture up of her version of the sweater. Absolutely loved her color combination. I really liked how like moody and romantic it was. And I think actually I've achieved a similar vibe with what I've decided to go with. So this is my new swatch for the Rosie Sweater. And this is knit in Newton in the color Vagabond with this Lang lace mohair in the color, I think it's 992. Here's the label. I'm not really sure how Lang, I think it's 992 in this code here, but it's this really dark eggplant color, and actually these like match perfectly. You cannot really at all see the mohair strand in here. It's like a really perfect match. So I have that combination for the base, and then I decided actually after swatching this with 3 colors in the color work was driving me absolutely insane. And this is so tiny, like this is such a tiny portion of the color work, and I can't imagine having to do that for a sweater. I just found that doing 3 colors with the Newton, like the Newton plate, was so hard to manage, and it was getting stuck to all the mohair, and it was too much. It was too stressful. So I don't think 3 color work involving Newton is going to be in my future anytime soon. But I decided to go with a 2 color version, and I decided to take the color that I had used for the base of this and use it for the roses. So there are really lovely light pink roses that I'm gonna have now in the sweater, and you can see like such a difference. This I think is just so much better than this, like leaps and bounds. So this is what I've decided to go with for my Rosie sweater, and I am so happy with how this swatch turned out. I just think it's really beautiful. And I did actually cast this on as well. So I have it in this Heidi West bag. I think that's her name, yeah. Heidi West. This is my favorite bag to do Newton sweaters in because it fits a lot of plates in here. And I like that it's really structured. So the Newton, like if you want it, you could knit from this bag. I like that it stays open, but I just feel like it keeps the Newton really orderly and doesn't mess with the strands. So I have just started on the back panel. So I just have this really tiny portion of the sweater knit up, and I did the short rows, and now I'm just knitting this down to length here until I connect to the front piece. So this is all I have thus far, but I'm super happy with this, and I feel like the color is also going to be really nice on me. And yeah, I'm glad I listened to my gut and didn't go with the first swatch, even though I almost did, just because I wanted to get started on it. And I'm really glad that I tried a different combination, and I'm so happy to be knitting this. This will actually be the lightest Nutiden sweater that I've knit too, because I'm doing it one strand, and the only other time I've done with one strand of Nutiden is in the Broom by Andrea Mowry, and I held that with a sport weight Surrey yarn. And this lace weight, the Lang lace that I'm holding it with, this is actually 310 meters per 25 grams. So it's actually a pretty fine mohair. I think that actually comes up to somewhere like 350 yards per 25 grams. So this is a pretty fine mohair. So I think this will be a really nice light fabric. And I actually did, so in my swatch, I had to, which is super unusual for me, and I think it's only because I tend to knit a little more relaxed in Nutiden, because you kind of have to, otherwise you will tear the strands and it will be super frustrating to knit with. So I actually had to go down. This sweater calls for a 6mm needle, and I went down to a 5mm needle. I am still ever so slightly, so my row gauge is spot on by doing that, but my stitch gauge is 20 instead of 21. And because of that, I actually decided to knit the size 3 instead of the size 4. So the size 3, I think, is supposed to have like 49.5 inches around the bust. And the size 4 is 55, which I just think is too much for me in general. And with my current stitch gauge of 20, I think I should end up with about a 52-inch bust, which I think I'll really enjoy that amount of ease in this sweater. So that's the gauge that I'm going to stick with. I'm going to stick with the 20 stitch gauge on this, and I think I'll be really happy with how this turns out. But I'm super excited to give updates on this just because I'm so happy with the color combination that I came up with. So this will be my Nutiden whip for a while, because I love knitting on Nutiden and I always want to have Nutiden sweater going. I just want to say as a last note for my Nutiden sweater that I personally like to knit Nutiden from plates. I don't like rolling it into balls first, because I feel that kind of pre-stretches out the Nutiden and you're kind of compromising the integrity. I also personally find it easier to do the plates, so I'll just sit the plate next to me and like lift up the amount of yarn that I want to use in that knitting session. And I think that preserves the integrity of the Nutiden the best personally. So if you haven't tried knitting Nutiden from the plates, because when I first tried knitting it, I wound it into balls because that's what I saw other people on YouTube do. I definitely recommend trying to do it in plates, because personally for me, I've knit quite a few Nutiden sweaters now, and plates is my preference. Even when I'm holding double strands, I'll just set them next to each other and make sure they're unwinding in the same direction, either both clockwise or counterclockwise. And that's always worked for me, and I find that to be the easiest way to use it. So just, a different perspective if you're planning on knitting an unspun sweater out of Nutiden or similar plaited yarns. Okay, my final whip that I have is sort of an unconventional whip, and you would have seen it if you watched my fall knitting plans video. I have it in this Nomadic Yarns, the self-striping sock dyer sock cube, which I love her sock cubes. They're so, so, so cute. And this one has a winter mushroom scene on it. It's very cute. And I have a very tiny and cute project in here. Or no, I don't. I lied. I don't have it in this sock cube. I have it in a different project bag. So in here is absolutely nothing. I will be back. So in this sock cube by 216 Knits on Etsy, which is also an extremely cute sock bag, this is like a patchwork sock bag, is where my unusual whip is. And I have to double knot these, all drawstring bags. I have to double knot because our most evil and loving cat knows how to untie single tie drawstring bags. So they have to be double knotted so he can't get into my projects and eat my yarn. And in this project bag, I have this. This is my extremely tiny odd object whip, and you're probably asking yourself, what the heck is that? This is a shrew head. And I haven't seamed it up yet. Actually, this front part here is going to be the nose, and it's going to be seamed up. And then the 2 holes at the top of the head are going to be mattress stitched next. This is knit in Holst yarn in the color Cinnamon. And this is the Shrew pattern by Claire Garland, which is a very, very tiny knit stuffed shrew. I think hers, she says, comes up to 3 inches higher. I went up a needle size and I'm using ever so slightly thicker yarn since she uses like a lace weight cashmere, and Holst I would say is like an extremely light fingering. So I think mine will be ever so slightly larger than hers, but I have just started on this tiny itty bitty shrew head. And this is all that I have of it. So for the head, I'm using the Holst Cinnamon. And then for the white belly, I'm using Holst Super Soft in the color Almond. And I decided actually for the little hands and feet that he has that I'm going to use this pink variegated superwash yarn that I've used in quite a few socks. And why I chose this is because I thought it would be like texturally nice if the hands and feet were like silkier looking, so they looked more fleshy. Does that make sense? That sounds really gross. So they looked more like skin-like. You know what I'm saying? So I chose to do superwash for those. We'll see how that turns out. If it doesn't work, then I will probably use some Jameson of Shetland that I have instead of this. But I thought like texturally, this would be nice for hands and feet of a shrew. And then in my fall knitting plans video, I originally said that I wanted to knit the shrew a tiny Christmas sweater, but I'm knitting the shrew pattern because our tiniest gray cat, which I'll try to put a picture of him here, is named Goose. But one of his nicknames is Shrew and Shrewby. So I just thought it was so cute that this super odd pattern came out by Claire Garland because, you know, who would have ever known that she would have come out with a shrew pattern? So I'm knitting this in honor of him. And I was originally going to knit a Christmas sweater, but I wanted this to be less seasonally restricted. So I decided I'm going to use these 2 Spindrift scraps that I have. I'm sorry, I don't know. I have no clue what colors these are, but it's like a light teal and a mid-tone teal. And I'm going to knit him a little sweater out of this. And I feel like this is a good color combination because it's like a really zen, calm color combination. And Goose is our most anxious cat. He basically lives in constant fear. He was a feral kitten and he's super skittish and scaredy. And I just felt like this would be a great color combination for a sweater for him over the Christmas sweater. So this is what I'm gonna do for that instead. I was initially worried that knitting a small stuffed animal was going to be insanely, frustratingly fidgety, but I actually have found this pretty enjoyable to knit. I will say the only issue I had was self-caused. So I often knit patterns off of my phone, and this pattern is landscape instead of portrait. Is that right? So the pattern is set up in landscape, and I had it zoomed in to the first column on the pages. And after I finished the head, it like immediately went into the legs because I had it zoomed in, and I scrolled back and forth probably like 30 times. And I was like, I am so confused. Why is there no part for the body of the shrew? Like, why is it only the head? And then I realized that I had just zoomed in so far and didn't realize and was missing like half the pattern. But aside from that, aside from my own user error, this has been extremely enjoyable to knit thus far. And I just like how quickly it comes up. I don't know. I'm excited to finish this shrew. I'm not going to buy, so she calls for like little plastic eyes that you glue on. And I'm going to try, I have black embroidery thread somewhere. somewhere in my craft disaster, there is black embroidery thread. So I think I'm gonna try to embroider the eyes. That's why I haven't really moved on from this step yet, because I need to find that, and then I'm going to seam those bits and embroider eyes onto this and see how that turns out. But yeah, I'm excited to have this little shrew knit up, and hopefully by the next time I podcast, it's either done or mostly done, so you can actually see what the shrew looks like. But I'm very excited to knit that, and I think this has really opened the floodgates for me wanting to knit more tiny little things, because I do have a bunny pattern by the designer that does Moosh and Friends, and I had been putting off knitting that because it just seemed really overwhelming. But after getting started on this, I don't find it overwhelming anymore. So I think I'm gonna start knitting more of these tiny things. I will say, when it comes to knitting this shrew, that the instructions, since I've never knit anything like this before, the instructions mean like nothing to me. Like reading ahead, it's basically just gibberish. It means I don't understand. Like if I read ahead, I have no idea what's going on. It absolutely means nothing to me because I'm not familiar with structuring of like stuffed things, especially something like a shrew. Like what an odd shape. When would I have knit a shrew before? And I will just say a bit of advice, just follow the directions and don't worry about it. Like, it's okay to not know what's coming up next. As long as you follow the instructions, just, put Claire Garland is a fabulous designer of tiny stuffed things. I mean, she's knit so many amazing things. Just put trust in her and follow the directions, and I'm sure everything will turn out fine, because yeah, reading ahead in something like this, if you've never knit something like this before, just gibberish, doesn't mean anything. So you just have to have a bit of faith and trust in the designer that everything will turn out all right. So that is my final whip of the podcast. And I do actually want to talk about a couple future cast on things, one immediate cast on, and then one like into the distant fall, maybe like November, December cast on. For upcoming project plans, I really want to knit another Sophie scarf. This is by far one of my favorite and most worn knitted accessories. So there are a couple reasons why I really love this. One, I just think it looks super cute. Like double tied, I love it. I think it looks super cute. Can add such a fun pop of color to a rather boring outfit. Two, I like that if I overheat, which I often do, I can just take it off and it will fit in like a coat pocket or my purse, unlike a shawl or scarf, which sometimes I find like really annoying when I don't want it anymore, since I normally I carry pretty small bags, so I don't have something that I can realistically shove a scarf or shawl into. And three, I really like that it doesn't mess up my hair, or if I have glasses on or like a clip-in, I don't have to pull it over my head like I would a cowl. So I just think it's a really convenient accessory. I know some people, I've seen a lot of posts in knitting Reddit of people criticizing the Sophie scarf, and to each their own, but I personally love the Sophie scarf and I intend to knit quite a few more. I just think it's a great little accessory. And one of my upcoming whips is I really want to knit a Sophie scarf in this green vintage Angora that I have. It's like a true primary green color, and I think this will be such a fun pop of color. And honestly, I plan on wearing it. This is going into my grape outfit. Why do I need a grape outfit? I don't know, but it's bringing me so much joy right now that I feel like I really need to complete the grape outfit, and I don't have green pants. Like I have green leggings, but no green like pant. Oh, actually, I do have green pants. This is perfect. I will have like the truly perfect. I have purple boots. And purple sneakers. This is really not a good, for someone who's saying that they don't love purple, I have a lot of purple things. But anyways, so I could have like a fully green and purple outfit. Imagine this hat, this Sophie scarf, my purple sweater, and then it's just gonna be absolutely ridiculous. And I will definitely wear that to the chagrin of my husband. I will definitely wear that outfit out, and I am super excited for it. I am just, like I said, I'm going to be like the happiest grape on earth, the happiest, most artificial grape on earth, because there is no grape on this planet that is truly this color, but I'm so excited for it. So this is gonna be a similar, I'm gonna do it the same length as this one, a Sophie scarf, and I'm so excited for it. These knit up so fast, so probably by the next episode, maybe I can show you my crazy grape outfit that I'm excited for. So this is an upcoming whip that I'm gonna have. And then for the farther in the future whip, I'm going to talk about, in my fall knitting plans, I talked about how I want to knit the Iris Sweater by Trin Anna Lee, which is a super beautiful, like all over color Iris colorwork sweater. I actually particularly want to knit this sweater because growing up in my childhood home, we had irises that filled the bed along the entire one side of the house, purple and pink irises. So for me, the name just really brings back so many memories of my childhood, and I loved the irises on the side of the house, and when they would bloom, my mom would always cut some and put them all throughout the house because we had so many of them. So the sweater really gives a sense of nostalgia for me, but I am so afraid to knit this sweater. I wanted to swatch for this, but honestly, I was too afraid. Like, I don't know what about this sweater seems so scary. I mean, I've never knit any color work on that scale at all before, and I am just so nervous to knit that sweater. So if you've knit that sweater and it's not bad, or you've knit something similar and you have any tips or, words of encouragement, I would really appreciate it because I really want to knit that sweater. But I also realized in my fall knitting plans that I said I would insert the colors that I wanted to use for that sweater, and that I never did. So I just wanted to show those quickly, what kind of color palette that I'm going for. So for the non-flower portions of the sweater, I plan on using, so the entire sweater I plan on doing in Jameson Shetland Spindrift, which is a fingering weight Shetland yarn. For the base, I want to do Esit, which is this color here. And then for the underneath the flowers, where there's almost like what you would imagine as like the color work ground, I want to use this color palette here. And this one is Bracken, this is Birch, and then this is Burnt Ochre. So here are these colors. And then for the ribbing, she actually uses a different color than the base in her example. And I think I'm gonna do the same in mine. And I'm also gonna use the same color. I'm going to use this color, which is Natural White. So for the collar and ribbing, I'm gonna use Natural White. And then for the flowers themselves, I am just doing a whole slew of scraps, of Spindrift scraps. So you can kind of see I'm doing an orangey, purpley, pinky color palette for the irises. And I am really excited. I really want to have this project, but I really want to have the finished object, but I'm so nervous to knit this. I don't really know what it is too. I think it's just because I had the sweater fail that I'm nervous. I'm I failed at a stockinette sweater. How can I possibly knit a colorwork sweater? And it's really surprising too, because I'm not normally someone that's like that. The first sweater I ever knit was a cabled sweater in Newtoden. So I'm normally someone that and it's also still one of my favorite sweaters, but I'm normally someone that just dives straight into knitting. So I don't know what it is with me and this Iris sweater, but I am so afraid to knit it. So please, any words of encouragement, I would love to hear them because I really want to knit this sweater. And I am just scared. I won't try to knit that until after I knit the Rosie sweater, so I have some time, but I really feel like I need courage to knit this. And honestly, that's it for me for today. I have some acquisitions, which I said I wasn't gonna buy any more yarn, and I did. I don't know. I don't need any more yarn. So yeah, I had some acquisitions, but I'm not going to show them because this video is just so long now, but I'm so glad to be back. I would love to know what you're knitting on for the fall, and I hope everyone is having a beautiful and splendid October, and I wish you luck on all of your knitting and life endeavors, and I'm so glad to be back. That was a very long run-on sentence, but yeah, I'm so glad to be back. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and I look forward to seeing you all again sometime soon. Bye.